Welcome to Top English Stories, where every story doesn't just help you learn English, but helps you understand yourself. Here, we don't learn just to speak better. We learn to live deeper. Today, I want to tell you something about happiness, that thing everyone searches for, but few ever truly understand. I'm a professor of happiness. Every time I say that, people smile, a small smile, part curious, part confused. Because deep down, everyone wonders, how can you possibly teach a feeling? I understand that question, because happiness sounds like something you feel, not something you study. But the truth is, happiness is more than a feeling. It's a living phenomenon, a blend of psychology and biology, of the mind's light and the heart's warmth. When I ask my students, what is happiness? Most of them start the same way. It's the feeling you get when, and I just smile. That answer isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. Defining happiness by a feeling is like describing Thanksgiving dinner by the smell of roasted turkey. The smell tells you something wonderful is coming, but it isn't the feast itself. True happiness, the kind that lasts and deepens, is a harmony of 3 notes: enjoyment, purpose, and satisfaction. And when you learn to listen closely to each note, you begin to understand what real happiness actually sounds like. Part 1. Enjoyment. The joy that stays. Joy. It sounds simple, but to truly understand it is not simple at all. Many people confuse enjoyment with pleasure, 2 words that look alike, yet stand worlds apart. Pleasure is something that happens to you. It's a reaction from the ancient part of your brain, the limbic system, a mechanism that rewards you with a quick shot of delight, so you'll repeat the behavior again. You eat a piece of cake, you watch a good movie, you buy something new. That's pleasure. A short wave that rises and fades. Enjoyment, though, is different. It's not just about pleasure. It's when you add your humanity into that joy, when you share it with someone, when you remember it, when you feel it fully with your heart. A delicious meal gives pleasure, but when you share it with family, when laughter fills the air, and stories mix with the smell of food, that moment becomes enjoyment, and it turns into a memory of happiness. Pleasure comes and goes. Enjoyment stays, because it's woven with emotion, memory, and connection. People aren't happy because the food tastes good. They're happy because of the eyes that meet across the table, the laughter, the warmth that lingers. Only when we share our joy do we truly feel alive. Maybe this is the first layer of real happiness: to enjoy without rushing, to touch the moment while it's here, and to stay long enough for your soul to smile. But joy alone isn't enough, because if enjoyment is the light that begins the journey, then purpose is the fire that keeps happiness burning. Part 2. Purpose, meaning and strength. Everyone wants their life to mean something, but few realize meaning often walks hand in hand with pain. When I ask people, when did you discover your true strength? Rarely do they speak of happy days. Most talk about loss, heartbreak, and moments that broke them open. It's within suffering that we see ourselves most clearly. Like a seed, it must crack open before it can grow. Without darkness, it would never reach the light. Meaning isn't born in comfort. It's forged in the fire of trial. In the place where the heart is torn, yet still beats. Where you think you cannot go on, and yet somehow you do. And in that moment, you realize pain is not the enemy of happiness, but the teacher that leads you closer to it. Some lessons can only be learned through tears, and some moments become precious only after you've lost almost everything. Purpose doesn't come from what you possess, but from what you've overcome. That journey, with its scars, its falls, its awakenings, is what makes you real, deep, and worth living. So happiness isn't about avoiding pain. It's about finding meaning inside it. It's when you realize everything that once broke you was actually shaping who you are today. When you reach this layer of meaning, you begin to understand. Happiness isn't a destination. It's the quiet maturity born from every wave you've survived. But even after finding purpose, there remains one more paradox, because satisfaction, too, slips away. It comes, then disappears, leaving us yearning for more, and that's what the next part will reveal. The paradox of satisfaction, and how the mind quietly deceives us. Part 3. Satisfaction, the paradox of fulfillment. Satisfaction. It sounds like the reward after a long journey, the joy that comes when you finally reach your goal. But here's the irony. It never stays for long. You get what you've been longing for, and in that moment, your heart blossoms. But a few weeks later, the joy fades, and a quiet emptiness begins to open inside. The house that once was a dream suddenly becomes just a place to live. The car that once thrilled you is now just transportation. And you ask yourself, why does everything I achieve lose its spark so quickly? The truth is, it's not your fault. It's how nature keeps us alive. The human brain is programmed to return to balance, a state called homeostasis. Like a lake after the wind, the waves settle, the surface smooths, calm, but also indifferent. Your brain does this to prepare you for what's next, because if the feeling of satisfaction lasted forever, you'd stop moving, and evolution would stop with you. So nature built a clever illusion. Each time you reach happiness, it quietly steps back, just far enough for you to start chasing again. We all step onto that invisible treadmill, the hedonic treadmill. The more we have, the more we want. The joy grows shorter, our steps get faster, our breath heavier, and yet the distance to true happiness remains the same as when we began. And slowly, we stop running for joy. We run out of fear. Fear of stopping, fear of falling behind, fear of the emptiness waiting if we don't achieve something more. But it's in that moment of exhaustion, when your legs want to stop, but your heart still resists, that a question quietly awakens inside you, a question powerful enough to change everything. If satisfaction always slips away, is there a way to keep it, The answer doesn't lie in what you can gain, but in what you can desire less. And that is the secret the next chapter will reveal. The true formula for lasting satisfaction. Part 4. The formula of true satisfaction. We grow up believing one thing: I'll be happy when I have enough. Enough money, enough space, enough love, enough recognition. But the truth is, satisfaction doesn't depend on how much you have, but on the ratio between what you have and what you want. In other words, satisfaction. What you have, what you want. A person who has a lot but wants more remains miserable. A person who has little but wants less finds peace. Happiness doesn't come from expanding what you have, but from shrinking what you want. We all know how to manage our possessions. But how many of us know how to manage our desires? I once had a friend, a young, successful entrepreneur. At 32, he set a personal goal. When I can buy a Mercedes in cash, that's when I'll know I've made it. And one day, he did. As he drove the car out of the showroom, he told me his heart was pounding with joy. He felt pure satisfaction for about 45 seconds, because as soon as he turned the first corner, another thought crept in. If I'd saved 6 more months, I could have bought a Ferrari. In an instant, the happiness vanished. That's the endless curve of desire. The more we achieve, the more we feel we're lacking, like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. The solution isn't to get more. The solution is to want less. It's when you learn to want what you already have. Try this simple exercise. Write down everything you long for, and instead of adding them to your bucket list, put them in a reverse bucket list. For each item, ask yourself, if I never have this, will I still be okay? If the answer is yes, cross it off. That's not giving up. That's freeing yourself from the chains of desire. If you get it, good. If you don't, still good. Because true happiness doesn't come from possession, but from freedom. Freedom to be content with any outcome. That's the quiet power of maturity. No longer ruled by desire, but able to rule your desires. When you want less, you start to feel more peace. Because satisfaction is no longer stolen from you. It becomes still, grounded, and deep. And here's what's fascinating. Those who find this stillness all share one thing in common. They no longer seek happiness in material things, but in the bonds shaped by love. 4 kinds of love: faith, family, friends, and work. The true foundation of lasting happiness. Part 5. The 4 loves. If material things can't hold happiness, then what can? The answer is so simple we often walk right past it. True happiness doesn't live in what we own. It lives in what we connect with. There are 4 strong pillars that hold up a happy life: faith, family, friends, and work. 4 sources of love, 4 directions the soul can return to. Faith. Faith doesn't always mean religion. Sometimes It's simply the feeling of belonging to something larger than yourself. It's the morning sunlight filtering through the leaves, the deep breath you take in a quiet forest, the music that makes you feel small, but peaceful. Faith is that moment when you pause the race and remember that life is bigger than ambition, bigger than numbers, and beautiful enough that just being here already feels like a miracle. Without faith, we lose ourselves. With faith, we stand steady in every storm. Because faith, in whatever form you find it, is the root of peace. Family. Family is the place you can return to without explanation. Even through disagreements and distance, there's always someone who would answer your call at 2 a.m. That place isn't perfect, but it's real. It can hurt you, frustrate you, yet it's the only place where you're loved without having to prove you deserve it. Don't let small conflicts make you forget the bigger truth. Without them, there is no true home. Family is the root of love, and when the roots are strong, the tree of life never falls. Friends. Not everyone beside you is a friend. Some are deal friends, friends of convenience, friends of benefit. But then there are the others, the real friends, the ones who stay even when you've lost everything. They don't care how much you have. They care who you are. They laugh with you when you succeed. But more importantly, they sit beside you in silence when you fall. One true friend, just one, is worth more than any treasure. Because among all the noise of relationships, genuine friendship is where the soul finds rest. Work. Work is not about power or status. It's the way we turn our abilities into service. You can be a doctor, a teacher, a worker, or an artist. What matters isn't what you do, but why you do it. When your work becomes a way to make others better, happiness stops being a reward. It becomes the natural result of meaning. Faith gives you stillness. Family gives you roots. Friends give you strength. Work gives you purpose to rise each morning. And when these 4 loves come together, you don't just live, you live fully. But the story doesn't end here. Because even after finding the 4 loves, a deeper question waits in the silence. Have I truly been happy? Or have I been chasing happiness like a blind wanderer searching in the wind? The answer lies in the final part of this journey. Part 6. Reflection. In the end, happiness doesn't come from having more. It comes from wanting less and loving deeper. We've been running for so long, chasing lights we thought were dawn, only to realize they were reflections of our own desires. So pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what am I really running for? And does it truly bring me peace? Because if happiness is always somewhere ahead, we'll spend our lives feeling unfinished. But if we learn to stop and look around, we'll see happiness was never gone. It's there in a quiet morning, in a loved one's laughter, in the slow drip of coffee in a familiar kitchen, in the simple awareness that you are still here, still breathing, still given the chance to love once more. Happiness isn't the prize at the end of the road. It's the way you walk it. It's choosing to smile, even when the path isn't perfect. It's feeling gratitude, even when your hands hold only a little. And if you're hearing these words right now, take it as a sign, a quiet invitation to begin again, with stillness, with gratitude, with this very breath. Because happiness isn't a destination. It's the journey, and you're already walking it. If this story touched something inside you, leave a small sign, a like, a share, or simply write, "I'm ready to live slower." Sometimes, happiness begins with something that's small,